Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives, and I have a special guest today. She is Elena Hartz, and she is 48. She's a bit younger than me, but I was so excited to have her on the podcast because she has such a great story. And I know we're going to have a long conversation, and I've already talked about maybe it's going to be in two parts, but I'm not going to cut it short because she has so much value to give of, just inspiration on not only her backstory, but she's kind of going through her own midlife transformation right now. And so that's what intrigued me is so much, and how, her mindset and how it's changed through the years is just, to me, fascinating. So how I came to know Elena is, and we're actually just meeting for the first time here on the podcast, but I heard her on her daughter's podcast, and it was such a fascinating story. And so I'll refer you to that podcast episode because don't want to go into all the backstory because that podcast episode was 2 hours long. And I started listening to Elena. I started listening to it when I went on a walk with my dog, and I didn't want to stop listening to it. And so it was just so compelling. And I'm so glad she didn't split it into two, because she said she thought about doing it and she kept it one big episode. But just a little tad about her backstory as a summary, but she's a Russian immigrant, and she came to America back when she was 20 years old. In 1993, just said October's been a big month of transformation for me too, but I didn't come from another country. I came here. Yes. And she immigrated with a 1-year-old. Her daughter, Catherine Zinkina, was 1 year old. And she basically escaped from Russia. And the fascinating story is it was a scary thing. And the way just the story of how they had to evade authorities, and they couldn't tell even loved ones where they were staying. And they stayed in different places on the way to the airport. It took several days, and going on the train and this and that. I mean, it was, and just the life, Elena, you went into your life of, what it was like living in Russia and growing up in Russia. And so that, I think a lot of people that live in the United States that aren't that familiar with, not only a lot of people haven't even left the country, number one, but people who really don't know what it's like to live in that kind of because Russia has changed a lot since this time. But I want to refer you to that episode. It's 217 of the Manifestation Babe podcast. So, and I also want to warn people that Catherine does say the F word. I do have a lot of followers who might not like the F word. But I wanted to talk to you about that too, Elena, because my kids say the F word a lot. And I'm like, I like to use it. It's not that I don't say the F word, but it's much better when you say it infrequently, because then it's really powerful, don't you think? Yes. So anyways, so where I want to start, and welcome to the program, but I want to start by you sharing a little bit about your college journey. I mean, you go into that in the episode, but what I thought was so inspiring about that story is here you came to America without speaking any English, which is scary enough. But then you go and you have a baby, and you go and you apply to college, and you don't even know English, and it's not even like English as a second language course. It's like, was it microbiology or something? So yeah. So I guess we just start by saying, I want to say hello, welcome, and thank you so much for coming and sharing yourself and being open to do that, because I'm excited about this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Lori. And I'm very excited. I'm surprised when you reached out to me, and it's like I wrote to my daughter, "Oh my God, look!" And Catherine is very excited about me because she's wanted me to tell my story for quite a few years now. Actually, it's her husband, who always encouraged me, Brennan, who always encouraged me because, with my daughter, Catherine, she has seen me going, us as a family going through all those years. So it's not like something can be surprise to her. She is an insider. It's for the outside view. You know, when I look at myself through Brennan's eyes.
I thought that was really interesting because that came up in the episode is where, yes, he is really more like somebody who wouldn't be, you know, he's looking at it from just a new person coming into your family. And whereas Catherine's in the thick of it, right? Because it was all part of her experience. So yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And, you know, when we met him, when, you know, we got introduced, when he walked through our doors, I mean, he saw us, you know, family of immigrants, but successful family of immigrants, you know, who were pretty much established, and we built our mini empire, and we're family and parents, and, you know, so when, you know, so for him, it was kind of a given, you know, he walked through this wonderful house, and, you know, in Pacific Northwest, it's an oceanfront house, you know, it's a beautiful area. And once we get to know each other, and he would start picking up on the small snippets of this one and that one, and, you know, he started asking questions, you know, in simple way. He was very curious. And for me, at first, it was like, you know, it's obvious. Yeah, of course we struggled. I mean, who doesn't? But for him, those details, when he started, you know, taking out and the questions, and finally he said, Elena, I want to interview you. I want to write it down. It's such a magnificent story, you know, for a family, for people to know you, an inspiration. And it's like, me, an inspiration? I just do something to survive. So that's,
yeah, you kind of diminish it because, you know, it's just part of your story. I think, and this is a message I think for every person who is like living at midlife or later, is to like write down your story. Because my mother right now, my father's passed away. My mother is in assisted living, and she, as soon as my dad died, she kind of checked out. And so if I ask her any questions about her past, it's gone. Nothing. So many questions. She has sisters, but the sisters, they lived apart their whole lives. And so there is no way for me to capture the story of her life. It's lost. And so, yeah, it's so important to not only Catherine, but to her children that will come. And yeah, such a great story. I mean, mafia is embedded in the story, so it is a good one.
I've been around the block, right?
That's right. Yeah. Abuse, domestic abuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through a lot in my life, and I think I always pride myself to be a survivor. But I think I stopped liking, and I was proud of that, but I stopped liking that, because for me, life is about thriving. It's not barely by surviving and it's like making through another day. No, I want to make through another day, and I want to make it amazing, and I want to have another more amazing day after that. So there's nothing wrong with being a survivor. I just would like to redefine myself. You know, I'm a thriver.
And that's, if you wear that identity, I mean, sometimes you can manifest that again in your life over and over again, right? So, let me find the next thing to survive from. So I love the fact that you've reframed that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So tell me about like I mean, you probably didn't even think that was brave to go like not speaking a language to apply for college. And then you like tried twice and failed. And then you did it again. I mean, and then it was like your last, they gave you this is it. You will never get.
I failed the first year, and they put me on academic probation.
Yeah.
That was my last semester to make C, or I don't remember what I had to get, a C or a B, but something, you know, to pass my course. Otherwise, it would be my last semester. And from, you know, because it was an academic probation, I failed English second language classes and microbiology. You know, I tried and I couldn't. So that was, you know, it was like mission impossible for me. But at the same time, that was the only mission that mattered in my life at that time, because I needed that education. I needed to establish myself in the United States. I need to, well, that's word when you not accommodate, but anyway, to become one of the Americans. I wanted to be part of this country. I forgot the word. I will remember that. And so for me, it was through education. I'm not the business and I'm not an entrepreneur spirit. For me, I needed a formal education. I needed a profession. I needed a stable paycheck. And that was the only option. So it wasn't like, maybe we can try. I mean, it's like, there is no try. I must make it no matter how. That's my only door out of the abusive relationship. That's my only door out to my child never needing, to go to the Goodwill or, donation centers or be on welfare, because I was on welfare at the time. It just, we were doing, going to the donation centers and get the charity and the kitchen, pantries that they give you food, so I've been through that, and I did not want my child to be one of those kind of people who I was.
Yeah, and you had, actually, I remember you said that you had, when you came here, you didn't have a lot of money. You did have some relatives, but you had another obstacle because there was an earthquake, and then you became homeless because of the earthquake, because you couldn't get in the house that you were staying in. And oh my gosh, like, and then to go to school, to me, that was like, you say you're a survivor, and I see that in there, but looking back, what do you think about that 20-year-old? I mean, talk about determination to not give up. Like, after the first failure, you think, oh, some people would just be like, oh, I'm not going to try. You try again, and then you try again. And I guess what drove you is, to get out of that abusive marriage, and because you looked at your little girl and you wanted a future for her. So it was more about her.
It was about her. I told Catherine many times, if it wasn't for you, for her, for her birth, I probably would be in a very, very different place, because I was very young. Even when we moved to the United States, I was 20, I was young, I was attractive, tall, skinny, I would probably spend my nights in nightclubs, dancing my life away, and have, because it's a completely different country. Don't forget, it's the freedoms we have in this country, it's unimaginable compared to what we had in formal, in Soviet Union. And for a young person who were used to the cage and fears, and all of a sudden you're free. You don't even know where to go because there's so much freedom out there. So I was, if it wasn't for Catherine, I would probably indulge in freedoms a little bit too much.
Yeah, and what the other interesting thing too is you had to really learn how to use connections in Russia. So, and I wonder how that kind of transferred to America. It's almost like, I'll figure it out. I can figure it out. I know that I can meet people. I know it, so, and that was like so much more available to you in the United States than it was in Russia. You had to really figure it out in Russia, I guess.
It's very different way of living. So connections, as important as they are in our lives as well, you have to figure out first, what do you want? And, we didn't have many friends, and, the relatives, they had their own lives. I mean, they work and, businesses and children. So we were pretty much on our own. I mean, they would help as much as they could, but it was our responsibility to take care of ourselves. And, it doesn't matter if you have connections, if you need to apply to college and pass the rudimentary tests, it's on you. In Russia, that would be connections, because you can bribe the committee and they're going to accept you because you paid them money. You don't have to study. In here, you would have to study to pass the test. It doesn't matter if you're, if your grandpa, someone big out there. I mean, I know it helps, but not in our eyes at that time. Does it make sense?
Yes. So much so. That's so true. Yeah, you have to take more responsibility and ownership for, paving your own way. That's so interesting. Well, and clearly your daughter benefited from that kind of way of life, right? Because she certainly made her own way. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too is because, you come to this country with the American dream, and it was really powerful when you were talking about that in the episode, about how when somebody immigrates to the country and they have, they want the American dream, and it can happen. And so, you wanted things for your daughter. You know, we talked about before I hit record that I have daughters too, and you always have this, you know, dream for them to get a great job and contribute to the world. So what were your dreams for Catherine? And she clearly paved her own path, and she has used manifestation for that. So I would love to know kind of what was going through your mind, wanting the American dream, but having a different vision of what the American dream was. And you know, kind of what that did that cause, you know, problems in the relationship? How did you kind of transform as a mom to support her? I'd love to hear that story.
That is a great story, because my dream for Catherine is definitely not what she's doing right now. In fact, and I'm so grateful that she did not follow my dream for her happiness, and she carved her own path and became, you know, success on her own right. I do not want to subtract from her success. I just want to be clear. She went against my wishes, you know, before business career. I was terrified. I was petrified. I cried. I screamed. I threw tantrums, and she stood and faced all of that and still picked her own way of doing things. And I'm so grateful that she did. And I'm so grateful that I raised a daughter who can do it, who can stand up. And I'm a very powerful person and very bully, not bully in a bad way, but if I set a goal, no matter what, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna do whatever. So, and I had that goal for her. You know, I had medical school, you know, imagined in my mind for my child. And when she stood there, you know, one day and told us that's not what she's going to do, I lost it. I lost it, and it was very traumatic to me.
Because did she drop out of college? I mean, she was in college and pre-med or something.
Well, she was a pre-med major, biology, in University of Washington. So she graduated, and when she graduated, she told us she's not going to go any further, and she's not going to go to medical school. And that was a big shock to us, because she had that pre-med major, you know, UW, and you know, we paid for tuition, so she had no student loans. You know, it was one of our promises to our children, you know, we will pay for your colleges. It was our American dream as well, because I had to take my student loans, but I wanted my child not to have that. And then realizing that, you know, all those years and all those hopes just crushed in my face. And there's nothing I could do, you know, no screaming, no silent treatment, nothing could change her mind. And I'm so grateful that it didn't. And I tell her to this day, it's like, I'm so glad you didn't listen to me, because you would be probably miserable, you know, seeing how happy you are right now, how successful. And I cannot even imagine that I could have played the role in your unhappiness, you know, to take that life from you. You know,
yeah, you raised a stubborn girl, and good thing, right? It's kind of like you. Yeah, and not only that, too, she's helping so many thousands of people with what she's learned, and you know, just kind of being a student herself in manifestation and now teaching. So that's very powerful. So at some point you were like, okay, we talked about this also. It's so funny. So I think all those moms out there who supported their daughters in Beachbody. So my daughter was a Beachbody coach too. Yeah. So I was like, I'll sign up to help you kind of thing. And then I started actually working the business as well. But we were talking about Shakeology. I said, did you drink Shakeology too? Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So that's what we do as moms, to support our kids. Right. So at some point you adapted. So that's great.
Yeah. I at that point, I was not very supportive mom. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, it's network marketing.
I know, right? And you know, and again, as I mentioned before, I'm myself not an entrepreneur. Yeah, if for me, I'm more of a traditional. You get a degree, you get the education, you get a job. You know, not that it's good or bad one way or another. It's just my way of life. I'm confident in that part of my life. So for me, business open, businesses were not part of our family, because none of my family just started business and be successful. I mean, I have distant relatives, but most of, my mom, she is a classical piano teacher when she was in the Soviet Union. And my father was in the military. My stepfather is a mechanical engineer. My husband, we all had college degrees. So that was, the tradition you go through. So Catherine selected the non-traditional way, and Beachbody, I could see that it was not in her. And I know it doesn't make sense, but when I saw her struggling with that, she made some successes, but it was not as successful as she would think it was at the time. But I'm glad she had that experience, because it taught her to be in front of a camera. It taught her to speak her truth. It taught her how to behave, how to get the idea across, how to do the courses, how to, there's so much that she drew from that.
Yeah, online business is kind of what you're
Absolutely.
doing.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful that she did that. It doesn't matter what I thought about that, but I'm glad that she had that background. So she can once, I do know that people ask, how did you come up with that? And people ask me, well, how did she come up with, life coach and manifestation? And, I watch her talk to people, and then she would get frustrated because they weren't following her, lead or whatever in Beachbody. And then she found the niche that she's more excited and more able to motivate people in their personal life instead of fitness journey. So she was more into that, cheerleader and teaching them and manifesting in the general life. And that's how she transitioned. That it was amazing to watch, that shift.
Yeah. Yeah. I always remember this saying by Tony Robbins, where he says, there's breadcrumbs that are dropped at our feet, and sometimes we just walk over them, and sometimes we look down and we're like, oh. And I feel like there were breadcrumbs, and she was doing this one thing, but then there was a path to something better that lit her up more. So yeah,
absolutely led her to her own discovery. Absolutely.
There's so many people in the online space that were Beachbody coaches. And so it's like the training wheels. It's like, before I rode this really great bike, I was on the little Beachbody bike. So that's kind of what I think of when I think about it.
They provided somewhere the structure, so here's, the calls you have to make, and here's how you have to talk. So, and she took that. I mean, that's what I think she did. I mean, that's what the talk she tells me, but it's her own success. And it's amazing. It was amazing to watch. So I'm always grateful to Beachbody to give her a platform to build her life on.
Yeah. And it's like anything, practicing any new skill. And I first saw her do at James Wedmore's BBD Live. I saw her do a presentation. I think she had just come home back from her honeymoon. And to see how much, and that was 2.5 years ago, to see how much she's changed and grown, and just gotten so much more skillful at speaking and talking to our audience. And yeah, it's been, it's been great. And when you really sink yourself into something and believe in it and practice it, then yeah, it transforms into something really wonderful. So it was a kind of the slow growth of seeing that she was happy. I guess that made a lot of difference to you, that you saw that she was so lit up about what she was doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she bought so much into that, and still there's still hesitancy. And I have to admit, my feelings as a mother, as a planner, were hurt, because as a mother you plan things for your children, right? And all of a sudden my child was not caring much about my plans. She had her own, and I am a mother left behind. And it's like, I can't even offer her, here, take a jacket, it's too cold outside. I mean, she's an adult and she's building her empire, but I could see how much, I mean, she would spend days and hours on her laptop and creating courses and working, and because we all love to hang out in the kitchen, because I like to cook, I could see her, typing and, day in and day out. She would get up in the morning and go back, to sleep at night. She was so into it. It was amazing to watch. I mean, it's like she has her, iron claws, and she got her claws into that idea, and there is no way she's letting go of that one. It was very impressive to watch, even though I still didn't like it, but it was very impressive to watch the development of a character.
Yeah. Yeah. So you are going through your own transformation right now. So let's get back to Elena, and because your story is so powerful and it's continuing. And you're still so young. I look at you at 48. When I was 47, I left a 25-year marriage. So I would like, it was totally started over. And so I look at you and I was like, oh my gosh, my 50s, what I said were always my best decade. And then I was like, promised myself that my 60s, because I'm 62, would be an even better decade. And then the pandemic hit, but it's actually been, I've been having a great time. So yeah. So tell me what you're excited about right now in your life.
You mentioned pandemic, and, it's horrible the thing it is. I'm so grateful that it was forced me to be in my new place, in an apartment all by myself. So because my usual modus operandi is that if I have, if I just left my husband of relationship, we've been together for at that time 18, 19 years, so a long time as well. So for me, my normal behavior would be get myself into something, in a new relationship, house, a garden, friends, and occupy myself to distract my mind from the hurt and pain of the separation and the divorce, because no one wants to wallow in your misery at home. And I was actually forced, because the pandemic hit in March, pretty much, beginning of March, and I just moved to California in December 23rd. So it's literally, I'm in California for 2 months, and all of a sudden everything shut down, and I'm at home and nowhere to go. So I was forced to face myself. And I think the last 2 years, almost two, it's a year and a half, were the most transformational years of my life. I'm still working on that. I think they call it shadow work. I have no idea what it is, but I think I'm doing that. And developing spiritually and looking at myself and evaluating not only myself, but relationship in my life as a whole, because, I'm 48, as I said, I have already 2 divorces behind me. So in my mind, it's like, well, why would I want any relationship, even look for something? Look at my track record. I mean, all the relationships I had, they fell apart. And, and then I was like, well, but let's look at it from a different side. What's the constant in all of those relationships? And it's me. So what is it about me that, it doesn't mean that I caused the breakup, but what is it in me that selected those partners in my life? Why? So, and I have to be honest with you, the truths are often very unpleasant, to realize that's like, well, you did yourself. It just, amazingly enough, only last 2 months ago, actually, we were flying with Catherine from Costa Rica, or to Costa Rica, and we were talking about manifestation, because, I consider myself very powerful manifestor. I can manifest, I manifested the life I always wanted and keep manifesting everything beautiful and wonderful. And I was talking to Catherine, and I jokingly said, you know what? I manifested everything in my life. I'm a powerful manifestor, except for relationships. And then I stopped, and then I thought, and it's like, wait a minute. I manifested those relationships. I actually actively manifested failed relationships. Because when we think about the manifestation, we think about the good things. It's like, oh my God, the house, the car, children, and money, and all of that. And we keep forgetting that bad things that happen, those are manifestations as well. we subconsciously manifest bad things as well. So when I looked at my relationship, it's like, well, how can I change my manifestation game to not fall, prey or, or suffer again, cheating and abuse or, what can I do about myself and why? I know I deserve much more. I know I am, I'm 48 and I educated and I can cook and I can garden, and raise children and all of that. So how come no one valued me in the past? And I realized I didn't value myself. I was willing to settle. It's not them, that's me. So, last year and a half, and we talked about Rhythmia as well, we will go more into detail, it was uncomfortable, but I like me better with every spin of a spiral, because you kind of spiral sometimes out of control and you get in the next level and it's understanding and you go on the next level of understanding and it's painful. But I look at myself like, I like it, what I see in the mirror, so yeah, there's a lot of work to do. Yeah, we can figure it out, but you know what? I'm doing that. And that's
that is so powerful. What an aha. And I love how like it's just a deeper awareness of like what is causing these things to happen. And I had a big, huge aha. I talked about it a long time ago on a podcast, but I lost millions of dollars. I was with AOL in the day when, internet started, and I worked. So I got a lot of stock options, and my ex-husband, he had a problem with materialism, and loved him to death, but he had this like, he had a need to like buy expensive things, and I kind of just like went along with it. And one day we were living in this basically 11,500 square foot house, and you had 9.5 bathrooms. And I remember I answered the door, a solicitor came to the door, and I remember being so embarrassed about living in the house that I was living in. I was like so embarrassed. And I remember my ex-husband came home from work, and he was like, well, I said, are you ever embarrassed by living here? And he was like, no, not at all. And then much later, I was doing the work and kind of trying to put two and two together about, why did that ever happen? I was like, oh my gosh, I manifested that. I manifested losing that because I didn't want it. I didn't like it. I was uncomfortable with it. And wow, that's exactly, it's so valuable for people who are listening to this, because now they can go back and look at, instead of mistakes they made, like, what were they thinking about? What, how did that come to be? Because the thoughts that they were putting out there were likely the wrong thoughts.
Absolutely. And you call it mistakes. And actually another realization I want to talk about, because people would, a common question, do you have any regrets in life? Or meaning that mistakes you made. And I was trying to figure out if I have any regrets in life. And, I do understand what regrets mean, regret word and definition, but then how can you have any regrets if you don't know what the alternative could be? Because, for example, you drive, on the freeway to work and you're running late and you miss your exit because you didn't pay attention, or you were switching radio and you miss the exit and you're late for the meeting, and, and it's a big problem and etc. And you beat yourself up. Oh my God, I should have paid attention. Well, how do you know that if you didn't exit on time and the right exit, there is no fatal accident out there? I mean, how would you feel if, if you learned that there wasn't a fatal accident and you would be part of that? So, we always think it's like regrets, meaning the alternative would be better.
Exactly. Yes.
Alternative would be better, but how do you know it would be better? Unless you tried that, you don't know. So we always punish ourselves in our mind. It's like, well, I should have married that guy. I could have went there. You don't know how it could have turned out. So why are you beating yourself? Those are not mistakes. Those are not regrets. You have a path in your life. And we can, come up with ideas. Well, I wish I finished, and played piano for a living, and my life would be so wonderful. What if I play piano? It would be miserable, worse than I am right now. So as long as you're happy with yourself right now, it means there's no mistakes. and there is no regret. You are exactly where you should be.
Yeah,
Sense?
so good. Yeah. So what went through my mind is my husband that I'm married to now, we've been married for 12 years. We were college sweethearts. And so a lot of times I'm like, oh, like broke up with him. He broke my heart. I married somebody on the rebound. And sometimes I'm like, oh, if only I hadn't married another person. But we often say if we got married back then, we'd probably be divorced. So
You needed to learn all those lessons. You learned
yes.
how married to someone else. So now you can have a wonderful relationship.
Yes.
So instead of, forever break up with your college sweetheart and never, see each other again, you learned the lessons and now you're back together. So there are no regrets. It had to happen.
Yes, that is so good, so profound, Elena. I love that so much that we always think that it's going to be the better scenario instead of like there could have been a fatal crash if we went that path.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. All right. So we talked, you mentioned Rhythmia, and a lot of people probably don't know what that is who listen to my podcast, but Rhythmia is a place, and you can speak more about it. Is it in Bali or Costa Rica?
Costa Rica. Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Okay. But it's an amazing place. You can look it up on, you can Google it, but, and then you go there and one of the options, I guess they have a few options, but you can go through this plant ceremony thing that lasts for a few days. And, Catherine did it. I was very fascinated with that. And then you went, and the first thing that comes to mind when I think of it is like, you can like get sick from this stuff, and it's like, I guess nature's kind of psychedelics, really. Right. So, and I don't know exactly what is it ashwagandha? Ayahuasca. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so, so like inform me, kind of teach me, like, what was your experience like? I hate throwing up. So I don't know. I guess the experience is worth it, but like, can you just describe a little bit about, like, were you scared to go?
The first thing I want to tell you, it was definitely worth it. It changed my life. I actually went twice because the second time I went in May of this year. So, a year apart. It was definitely worth it. Never in a million years that I would thought that I would go to something like that. Because me and drugs, no, we don't, and you can ask Catherine. I mean, it's something I was always paranoid of all her life. It was my biggest fear. God forbid my daughter gets into, I know she tried things. I don't want to know what she tried. Teenagers, I mean,
yes,
we do crazy stuff when we're teenagers.
You go to college, at least it's usually offered.
I prefer not to know. She turned out well now, but yes, it was one of my big objectives to raise, a great daughter, healthy and well, blah, blah, blah. So, and so Catherine knew, that I'm obviously against all of that. So I remember, before she went for her Ayahska experience, I think it was in November of 2019. And I talked to her in October, like a month or so, and she sat me down and she said, I'm so grateful she didn't do it over a text message or a phone. She actually did it in person. So she sat me down and she said, Mom, I'm going to this and kind of center. And here's what it means. And here's what I'm going to do. And I was speechless. I was terrified. I said, oh my God. So now it begins. I was terrified that it was something, it was a cult. It was, drug addict. I mean, the worst fears. And she spent a few hours with me and we watched documentaries and we researched, some articles because I absolutely love research. So we got scholarly articles because Ayahska is used in the United States for research purposes, for treatment of PTSDs and all of that. It's not widely accepted. It's considered experimental and all of that, but there are research articles in universities that do research. So you can actually go and look up information yourself. So she went and she said, when she came back, we talked during her stay out there, and she would share experiences, which, didn't make much sense to me because it's for her experiences. But then she came back, it was December, and she said, Mom, you have to go. I said, why? She said, you have so much trauma, you must go. Here's the present for you for Christmas. Her husband and her, they decided to give me that stay in Ayahska. So they sent me there. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I will, for the rest of my life, grateful for her for doing that, for pushing me into that direction, because the healing I got, and I'm still getting, and there's so much more healing to go through. It's hard to describe. It is very, because trauma is very personal. So you can't say, well, I healed my trauma, or, there is that trauma and I healed it, because no one can relate to that. Only you can. Only you have an answer. Are you healed or are you not? So the healing is profound. A lot of people concentrate, on unpleasantries, people throw up. Not everyone does. It is part of a ceremony. In fact, it never bothered me, I guess. For me, it was mostly safety, how vulnerable I am once, you put me under any influence. I wanted to make sure that no one takes advantage of me, or my daughter. That's why she set me down, because I understand the vulnerability state when you are under during the ceremony.
But there's guides there, so it's a safe environment, right?
I just want to mention, if someone of your listeners would want to try Ayahska, I must insist that they research the place where they go. Very reputable. I mean, I know there are quite a few places offer that, but make sure it's very reputable. And Rhythmia I can recommend, because I personally experienced twice. It's safe. There are a lot of attendants. There is medical personnel. There is security. There are shamans, amazing one-on-one, education-wise. If you want to try it for the first time, Rhythmia probably would be my best choice.
So we can put the link in the show notes to the website for that. But yeah. So you went alone by yourself?
Yes.
Wow, that's
I
great.
went alone, and not only that, I had a choice. Do you want to be alone in a room? For additional web. I don't remember how much you can pay, but you can be like in a hotel. You can have a king bed all to yourself, or you can be with a roommate for a cheaper price. For me, it was not about the price. For me, it was about throwing myself to the unknown completely, putting myself out of a box. I'm a very private and personal person. My normal behavior, I would pay extra and get a separate room. But I wanted to be, put me with a stranger. Let my fate decide who is going to share the room with me. Maybe I will have to learn something. I'm there to learn. Maybe it's, part of my development, just talk to strangers and share with them. And in fact, the second time when I went, I said the same thing. You know what? I don't want to be alone in the room. I want to be with strangers. I want to be integrated. I want to see people. I want to talk to people. So
that's very interesting, especially saying that you tend to be more private.
Yes.
That is so cool that it's like whatever the universe throws at me.
Bring it on.
You were really open to the change.
Yes, actually. And, I still was hesitant when I went for the first time. And it's normal. You don't know and I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I read online and I saw a documentary and I talked to my daughter, but unless you experience, it's hard to explain what it is. So I was very cautious, and it's like, safeguards, and it's like, we stay awake, we listen, we make sure, and all of that. And everything happens for a reason at the right time, I believe. I needed that kind of careful integration into the medicine, into the healing, because if you try to heal the whole yourself, body, soul at the same time, it's so much of a shock to your system that I think it can be counterproductive. You take the biggest problems and you heal them first, slowly, and as much as you can, but be gentle to yourself. And that's what I did. The first time was a little bit gentle. The second time I went for Ayahska a few months back, I said, you know what, I'm ready, bring it on. And she did. And I got amazing healing both times. There are quite a few lessons, you learn to forgive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that with your background, with the abuse, I'm sure that's a big one, but I guess everybody, because everybody has a different life, and a different connection with their soul at some point in their life. Some people go in there with less connection and some go in with more. So I think, it's all such an individual experience.
Yeah, but
Sounds like.
absolutely every one of them. There is like, I think the first time there were 70 people in the building, in the room going through the ceremony, and most of us, everyone went for different experience, but the outcome and lessons were the same, healing and love and nature and universe, and we're one, and there is just forgiveness, and you just have to live there. It doesn't matter, that kind of lessons were universal. How we got to those lessons were very different. One of the biggest lessons I learned the first time, and I still think about that. It's not an easy lesson, but you have to forgive people. People going to say that you have to forgive to move on with life. And yeah, absolutely, you have to forgive. However, you have to define what forgiveness is. Because, and I think I talked in a podcast with Catherine about that, because in my mind, I'm a strong believer in the karma, good karma. I want to be the best of myself, I want to help people, just for helping. And it's always, good people get good karma, but people get bad karma and all of that, which is true. However, when I have to forgive, I cannot rely on karma. Because if a person who hurt me or caused harm, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I don't even know what that person is. So how do you still live every day and think about, did karma get them? Did karma get them? Did karma get them? Do you call them? I mean, how do you find them? How do you check on them? You never truly let go because you want to make sure karma got them. So it's like, did karma get you? Did karma get you? Does anyone know if karma got that person, or how do you know? So if you never find out, if you live, if you're never in contact with that person, do you truly let go? Or do you always hold that grudge? Because you hope that karma will get them. And my biggest lesson was forgiving is letting go of any hooks, even through the karma. So forgiving meaning that if you hear that the person won $1 million, the most successful, got the wife, the most amazing life, if you are not bitter when you hear about them getting that. And so it's like, well, karma didn't get them. If you can just be indifferent to them, or in reverse, if they got harmed, if they got accident and paralyzed and all of that, are you happy for them? Are you happy right now that they got the karma that's going for them? What kind of life is that? Constantly thinking, did it get it? Did it get them good? So I think forgiveness, it's truly just letting go, not just saying, I forgive you, let God take care of you, let karma take care of you, but actually I forgive you. You don't have to forget, but you shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you shared that lesson. One book that made a big difference to me, my daughter actually gave it to me for Christmas a couple of years ago. It's called Journey of Souls, Case Studies of Life Between Lives. It's a hypnotist guy, a psychotherapist who uses hypnotherapy. And it's about, he wrote a book about hypnotizing people and finding out, and there was a pattern he started to notice over time, but people, it was past lives regression, but then they started talking about what happened between lives, like where they went, what they did, all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that relates so much to karma that was like eye-opening to me was like, if somebody is like, does evil in the world, it might not happen in this life, but in the next life, so if somebody's like really bad, well, they're going to come back and get their, whatever price they have to pay for that what they did. I don't know. And it helped me like have more empathy for people, and no matter what they choose to do or not do, it just gave me a whole new perspective. I swear that was so life-changing for me, because I didn't like, it's, I feel like I'm a little late to the game figuring all this stuff out. It would have been nice if I knew it when I was younger, but oh well, thank goodness my children are giving me this. I love the fact that, and I know we talked about grandchildren before we recorded, because I was telling Elena I have 6. And so, yeah, to know that we live in a world and that we have children that are more evolved and understand the power of the universe and manifestation and the universal laws, and that they're growing children that have these tools is amazing. Amazing. Your grandchild children, whenever they come, is going to be, we were talking because Elena was saying she's excited to have grandchildren at some point, because she was a single mom who was on welfare, and she was going to school, and she was struggling, and there was never enough time. And I didn't have it like you had it. And I was still kind of a crappy mom when it came to it. I love reading to my grandchildren. I didn't even take the time to read to my kids when they were little. I think, oh my gosh, thank God they turned out okay. They probably have like all kinds of like issues. They don't share.
All do, but then again, you have to look at do you have amazing daughters that turn out well, and maybe not maybe, but you were exactly the mother they needed. To grow out. And I have regrets, we talked about that, but it just like for my Catherine, I was exactly the mother she needed. Good or there are better mothers. I always joke that I have no maternal instinct, just sort of protective, but that is exactly what she needed to grow up and turn into the human being, amazing, successful she is today. If I did something different, she would probably, if I would baby her more, maybe she wouldn't have the stamina and this, and the spine to go through, because growing business is not easy. I mean, we only see successes. And the same is with your daughters. Your daughters needed exactly you.
Oh, I love that. And what do you think that we had these kids for? Like, because clearly they became our children for a reason.
Exactly. I think, you have to understand that everyone in your life, like you and everyone, someone else's, we serve a purpose. We serve the purpose. We have to learn lessons, the good, the bad that happened, the person, and I am someone else's pain in the neck. We'd prefer not to think about it that way, and we're not saying F words and now, but I'm someone else's unpleasant person in the life. Just like there's someone else in my life. You always have to keep that in mind. So, I always say that my purpose was to give the world with my daughter, who can change, people's lives. And it's true, but at the same time, I look at myself, well, I'm 48 and my daughter is successful. I served my purpose. So what do I do now? And I think that's what midlife crisis, for a lot of women whose children are growing out and don't need them anymore. It's like, who am I? And that's, I think, why we have so many divorces. I'm surprised to see how many divorced women are going through divorce or separation my age, that I talk to. Almost everyone is, because children are older, they don't need you to drive, and to arrange for play, they're in college or they're getting married. And all of a sudden the life falls apart because you don't know who you meaning, hypothetical you, or I don't know who I am without being a mother or a wife or a part of a unit. I so much lost of my individuality that I don't even know, is blue my favorite color, or blue is my favorite color because that was the unit, me and my unit, my husband, my daughter, and decided that blue is very appropriate color for me because I get the compliments. But do I like it? I don't know anymore. So it's finding yourself. And
Well, and I want to say too, because you had Catherine at 19, I don't think our brains are fully developed at 19. So like,
Oh, they're not.
yeah. So that's all you've known, like your whole fully formed brain.
I always was a part of some kind of a unit of my
Yes.
parents, my family, my child. It's like for the first time in my life, I'm living alone, and my parents, love them dearly, but my mom is always concerned, my God, you're alone. I mean, you're 48 and I don't want you to, I want you to-" and it's like,
Doesn't she know the 48 is the new like 28 or something?
and that's why I tell, but in her mind, I'm alone. I said, I'm not alone. I'm not lonely. I like it this way. And I was like, Mom, do you remember you went to college and you lived in a dorm? Yes. Yeah. Do you like it? Yeah, it was fun. I never had that opportunity. This is my dorm. This is my college. I'm partying now.
Yay. So tell me what you're most excited about. Tell me like, what are the feels like that you're going through?
It's a difficult question because, as I said, I'm going through discovering myself. One of the biggest, not issues for me, but one of the biggest points that I have to discover myself is what my passions are. Because, I'm not a mother anymore, meaning, I don't have a small child, or, I'm divorced, I'm all by myself. And I know, and I want to do something that I'm passionate about. I went to college because I had to. I picked the career because I had to be. I worked hard in certain positions as a nurse because I had to do it. For
Right. We didn't
else.
even say that you are a nurse. So that's real important to
Yes,
point out.
I'm
You're a nurse.
registered,
Yeah.
So, so now I'm discovering who I am, and I'm trying to figure out. And just last week, I realized that I truly miss working in the garden, because when I live in an apartment right now.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention, because her dog was making a little bit of noises in the background. So
Yeah,
they might have heard that. But one of the things we like figured out when we were talking and I reached out to you is we both had, well, your dog's still alive, mine's not, but they were named after Harry Potter characters.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I love her.
Yep, Professor Snape, he is.
Yes, Professor Snape. And I had Dobby.
Oh, Dobby.
And that was the saddest part of the whole movie.
Oh, yes, it is.
All right. Okay. So yeah, so you're going through lots of your discovery.
Absolutely. So just recently I realized I truly miss gardening. And when the last house we lived before I left, my husband is I built chicken coop. I had chickens. I planted 30 fruit trees. I had almost 100 bushes of roses. I miss that. I grew lots of, grape and berries and strawberries and raspberry and tomatoes. I love to preserve, just make my pickles and the pickled tomatoes and all of that. And I truly miss working with the soil and grow things. So it's a slow realization for me, but this is what gets me excited when I think about it, because I try to, well, do I like this or do I like that? And what truly lights me up is actually, farming and gardening. So I'm looking right now, it's like, well, maybe I should move somewhere, because in Los Angeles, it's kind of hard to find, a farm to work on. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to live so I can spend a lot of time growing things. And I love herbs. And I'm a lot of into herbs and natural medicine and all of that. So this is I'm discovering, and it's every day some new level. It's like, well, let's take a look at Texas. Well, maybe not. Maybe Tennessee is a good place to farm.
Well, what's interesting is you're so ambitious, but you're also, it sounds like you just are a constant learner. That you're just very interested in growing intellectually and now spiritually. And I just love that about you. And I have to say that your English is impeccable. I was so impressed. Your vocabulary is like better than mine. So I was like, when I was listening to Catherine's episode, I was like, oh my gosh, you have a strong accent, but your English is excellent. Excellent.
Thank you so much. I do love learning. Absolutely. I mean, I have bachelor's degree, I have master's degree. In fact, I applied for a PhD program. They didn't take me. So So couldn't do that. But yeah, I tried quite a few educational paths in my life as well. And I absolutely love research, and I love reading, and I love exploring, and absolutely. I'll read
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And it sounds too, because we were talking about this earlier, is that you are open to being more open about your life and sharing your journey and inspiring other people. And I know you're being encouraged to do that, and you're receptive to it. So I am so thankful and so grateful that you came on and talked to me, and I can introduce you to my audience, because you just are great. Your perspective on life and what you've been through. And I really encourage people to go back and listen to Catherine's episode to hear it could be a made for TV movie. Seriously. I mean, it could be on the theater movie, but everything I watch on TV now, so everything's TV movie. But seriously,
I'll reach out to my agent in Hollywood and cue them an idea.
It has everything. It has everything. All my claim to fame is my ex-husband was a police officer, and he and his partner solved a capital murder case, and so he's on an episode of one of the things on Forensic Files or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I know, but that wasn't me. That was I used to be married to.
Hey, it counts. Okay.
Hey, my aunt had a Hallmark movie made out of her, and she was interviewed by Oprah. I forgot about that. Yes, my aunt, and it must be hereditary, it runs in the family, but she rekindled. She had a baby out of wedlock when she was young. And then the baby grew up, was adopted, grew up, found her. They got together and reconnected. And then my aunt married him. So my aunt's been married to the biological father of her, given up for adoption. Yes, that was a movie. That was a movie. I had forgotten about that. Yeah. So see, you could have it could be like Matt Damon or Tom Cruise in the man role, and you could be like, I don't know, Angelina Jolie. I can see it happening.
All right, I'm in. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you. And
yes.
It's my second interview, podcast. My daughter interviewed me, and now and I'm loving it.
Yeah, you're good. You're natural.
My dog is now pushing me.
Yeah, it's I love having conversations with people, because it just makes it so. I wanted to do a podcast for 3 years, and I just I don't really know what to talk about. And then one day I just was driving my car, and I was talking to a woman. We were at a retreat, and we were on our way to it, and she's 70, and she was just going gangbusters with her business. And I was like, you know what? People need to hear your story. And there's not a lot of opportunity to hear older people, role models, and people who like you are so ambitious and just starting over. And so that's what I wanted to do, is really bring those stories to light and share them with the world. So of course, when I heard yours, I was like, oh my gosh, let's see if she'll answer me in a DM.
Because because you see podcasts, and my daughter has one, and other people do, and I always how do you come up with ideas to talk about? But you're absolutely correct. You can bring other people into the light. It's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, because I like to talk, so it's I can do that. All right. Thanks so much for coming. And I'm very excited to get this out there, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at notyouraveragegrandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.